A block mold using the Mold Start 30. Now, the easiest way to make a mold is creating a block mold. You simply put an enclosure around your model. As you can see here, we're going to use this Celtic skull. The Mold Start 30 is dispensed 1 part A to 1 part B by volume, and it's then thoroughly mixed by scraping the sides and scraping the bottom of your mixing container. I chose this material because it has a low viscosity. It pours easily, it traps air minimally, and the air that is trapped in the mixing process will degas naturally on its own in the material's long cure time, which is 6 hours. And then we're simply going to pour the material into the mold box at the lowest point and let it fill up the entire mold box until it covers the model. One great benefit to making a block mold is the fact that there are many pour-on materials available for the mold making process. You can choose between different viscosities, shore hardnesses, working times, and cure times. Now, the material is allowed a cure of 6 hours before demolding. Once the material is cured, we can go ahead and demold. You can see that we're only spent 26 minutes so far on this build, on this mold setup, and that's because it is one of the fastest way to make a mold, but it consumes a lot of material. You can see that the mold itself is quite thick in areas, and a lot of that material is actually not used for anything. It's just filling a void, filling a space. Now we demold our model, and here you have our model and the mold itself created. As you can see, the molding rubber has captured all the detail from the original model. All right, so let's take a look at our block mold here. The working time for this mold was 34 minutes. That means we took 34 minutes to construct the mold box around the model, mix and pour the material into the mold box. The mold was then allowed 6 hours based on the material cure profile to cure so that we can demold it. So 6 hours and 34 minutes is the total timing that it took us to create this mold off of our model. Now, the material cost is $125 based on a gallon unit and the amount of the material that we used up out of that gallon unit. Now, why would a mold like this be good, and when would you use something like this? When you're creating tabletop size pieces such as these here, block molds are great because they're easy to handle size-wise, and you're not wasting a lot of time creating the mold itself. They're fast production molds. There's a vast material variety that you can select from, and the minimal time investment to create the mold boxes and pour the material is really the convenience that counts here. Now, there is a high material cost associated with these molds because of the amount of material they use up. They're a bit heavier and harder to handle. Basically, they're more difficult to demold depending on how many cuts you have in your mold. And there is usually some post-finishing efforts associated with block molds because there's usually a little bit more flashing on them. So let's take a look at the brush-on mold.